We've had a big day, of course, big news breaking just before we came on with the live stream, and that is the Kenosha, Wisconsin trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. The verdict in about an hour ago, and on every charge, Kyle Rittenhouse found not guilty. To many people, this is going to be a big surprise because a lot of observers were saying since the jury deliberations were taking a pretty long period of time, they were expecting that somebody was holding out, we'd end up with a mistrial. Well, we didn't. Ended up with a not guilty across the board. Every juror polled agreed with the verdict, and the question now is, what will the reaction be across the country? And I'm not just talking about in the streets. I would hope that people would respect that we had a jury trial, that we had a due process for this kid, that he was not tried by Joe Biden, who declared him guilty before the trial even started, or that he wasn't tried by MSNBC or CNN, who declared him guilty before the trial ever started, and without hearing the evidence that was presented at trial. This is what I hope will happen, that America will say, well, that's what our system's supposed to do. Hear the evidence, give every opportunity for the prosecutor to make his case, but always remember that a person is innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in our system of justice. And the prosecutor failed to do that. And if you had an opportunity to watch much of the trial, I watched as much as I could, I don't know how they could come to any other conclusion. And by the way, don't let anyone tell you this had anything whatsoever to do about racism and white supremacy. Yeah, the kid was white. And every single person that he defended himself against was also white. This was not a race issue. And I really would love to see some of the anchors on MSNBC and CNN openly apologize on their air, not only for prejudging this kid, but also for completely just dismembering the very idea of criminal justice in this country and what it's supposed to be. And they better pray they never go on trial for anything, because I have a feeling that there'll be a lot of people that'll say, hey, karma would be that you guys get tried before you ever have the evidence presented. Anyway, a huge moment, and let's hope that people will relax, take a deep breath, and accept the fact that that's what the justice system is supposed to do. And if we don't like it, if we don't care for the particular verdict, does not mean we get to go loot stores and burn public buildings and private businesses. It means that you accept that sometimes the courts get it right, sometimes they may not, but in this case, I'll say it again, I don't know what other conclusion that they could come to. It seemed like it was an obvious case of self-defense. When someone's putting a gun at your head and you have the opportunity to defend yourself, you should. And that's basically what happened.
All right, let's move on. Joel and Deb write today, Mr. Huckabee, what is your thought on the prosecutor holding the AR-15 in court? He
was a total idiot. I've never seen anything so crazy. If I'd have been the judge, I probably would have asked the bailiff to arrest him. First of all, you never point a gun at anybody. And let me just give you the background. When I was a little kid, we all grew up with some basic understanding of firearms. They're pretty simple stuff, and I'm guessing maybe many of you grew up with these same principles. Number one, treat every gun as if it's loaded, even if you know it isn't, and you've looked right down through the barrel and you know that there's not any shell in there. Doesn't matter. You treat a gun as if it's loaded, even if it isn't. Second, you never, ever point a gun at someone. In fact, you don't point a gun at anything you don't plan to shoot. Three, you don't shoot anything you don't plan to kill. And you don't kill anything that you don't plan to eat. Now, unless that prosecutor intended to eat the jury, everything he did with that AR-15 was wrong, including, and most disturbing, was when he was holding it up and pointing it at the jury, for heaven's sakes, he had his finger on the trigger. You don't do that. You put your finger on the trigger only when you are ready to fire the weapon, not until then. I thought it was interesting when they showed in the trial one of the photographs of Kyle Rittenhouse, him holding his AR-15. If you happen to notice, his finger was extended away from the trigger, as every person who's ever been trained to shoot has been trained to do. You don't go around holding your finger on the trigger. That's begging for a disaster. So I think the prosecutor showed what an idiot he was, and he probably helped to acquit Kyle Rittenhouse.
Speaking of which, Marilyn Scott has written in, Governor, should Rittenhouse sue the media? You might have mentioned this.
Oh boy, should he ever. I hope he gets the best lawyers in America and he sues CNN and MSNBC. Too bad he can't sue Joe Biden because of immunity that he has as president. But I'd go through the newspaper clips and all these people who called him a racist, who called him a white supremacist, who called him guilty, who said he committed murder. There's a whole bunch of lawsuits begging to be done. And maybe he'll win such an award, he will own MSNBC and CNN and either shut them down or turn them over to me, and I will run them with a great level of responsibility. Wouldn't that be sweet? Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.